We're back for HoosierIllustrated.com, the post-game wrap-up show. Indiana football just took down Washington 31-17 to improve to 8-0 on the season. I'm Drew Rosenberg with Dylan Traeger. Dylan, you're at Memorial Stadium. Really just seemed like a hectic atmosphere. What was it like for you, like up close?
Yeah, thank you for having me today, Drew. It's been a crazy day. I got to the stadium at 6:45 in the morning, went right over to the game day setup, and from the second I got there, I realized how hectic this atmosphere was going to be. It was straight chaos. Barricades were being knocked down. There had to have been thousands of people lined up when I got there, and it was still pitch black. And just the setting going into the game kind of set up what momentum Indiana would have at the stadium itself. It was crazy the entire game. And the one point where I saw a shift was when Indiana's offense started falling behind, when Taven Jackson wasn't really performing the way everyone expected. It really got quiet, but as soon as the team picked things up, all the momentum came back. The fans stayed. It was a crazy game to be at.
Yeah, it looked, like an incredible atmosphere. I do want to start with game day just because, you had a, really cool experience getting to be up close and, behind the scenes for game day. What was that like?
Say that one more time.
Let me fix my.
You were this football game day today. What was that like?
Having trouble hearing you. Give me 1 second.
My audio not working? Can you?
It might be on me. I'm not sure.
That's weird. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you sound good now.
All right, perfect. So, all right, so sorry about that.
Yeah,
everyone.
I got you.
Yeah, so you were up close for game day today. What was that like? Just being, up close and personal, behind the scenes, getting to see everything up close.
For me, that was a dream come true. I got to stand on the set behind the actual show. So being that up close, Pat McAfee and all these other sort of legends we've watched in our kitchen and in our living room every year growing up was really surreal. McAfee seemed to be really excited, and he seemed to have definitely more of a passion for Indiana than any other team he's covered. Was really excited about things. Obviously seeing Lee Corso in that Indiana sweater, and he was wearing a hat from when he coached was really awesome. Just a really cool thing to see. And the fans too, some of the signs we were seeing and how hectic the fans were. They lined up starting at noon yesterday. Mm-hmm. So to be outside for probably 24 hours really just shows some of the commitment of these fans right now.
Yeah, and I do want to talk one more thing. Like there was a video that kind of went around. I know you said you saw it in person. The original field goal kicker blew out both knees. I guess, what did you kind of see? What happened there?
So at the end of the video, you can see me on the set, and I'm in the background, and we see this guy. He got picked. He didn't look like a student, is what I'll say. He looked a lot older, in his 30s maybe. He's got this knee brace on his knee, and he's kind of acting cool. He got picked to kick the field goal. It's got some mojo going. He's practicing his kicking format, and he completely wipes out on the ground. And I'm thinking he tore his ACL. He tries standing up. He's falling back down every time he tries to stand up. About 10 minutes go by. He thinks he's okay. He starts stretching out again and getting his kicking leg ready. And he wipes out again, this time hurting his other knee. And so now during the game, I'm sitting here in the press box working, and I see this video going viral. And I'm just losing it because it's what I saw hands on. But it was crazy. He didn't get picked, but I think he ended up getting kicked out or he left.
Ooh, yeah.
I heard he went to the hospital too.
Yeah, I did see that. That's really unfortunate for him. But yeah, let's jump right into this game because game day, just the atmosphere, everything. Let's start with the obvious. Indiana was without Taven Jackson today, or without Curtis Rourke and Taven Jackson starting. It seemed like, early on, Taven kind of struggled to get a rhythm, and it led to them really relying on the rushing attack. 52 attempts. What did you kind of see from there?
Well, starting off at last week, I thought Taven Jackson looked really good. He went 8 for 9. He had about 90 yards. He threw a passing touchdown. He looked really good. I think everyone felt really confident with him going into today. And he didn't look comfortable in the first half. He couldn't really find his receivers. The running back game wasn't working. But things kind of turned around in the second half. They did say Tyson Lawton had some sort of sprain. That's why we didn't see much of him in the second half. Justice Ellison had 29 carries, and he looked really good. Taven and Ellison really started working well together. But I think if Taven's going to be playing next week, that kind of shows you what the game could look like at Michigan State. The running back room is going to be used a lot, and you got to hope that Lawton's going to be available to play too.
Yeah, 5 passing attempts in the second half for Taven Jackson. There was one play that kind of stood out to me. He had Elijah Surratt on a deep ball, kind of really threw kind of a missile over the head of him, just like 20 yards. It's one of those things, kind of like a timing thing. Just seems like it's difficult. He's been the number 2, hasn't really gotten to work with a lot of the number 1 guys, because Rourke's been the guy, throughout the entire process. So for him trying to just jump in on, I guess he did have no going in the whole week that he was playing, but still it's a tough task against a Washington defense that had only allowed one quarterback to have more than 130 passing yards. So really, the fact he did have the interception, but it was kind of a weird deflected ball. Other than that, really just, you can't fault him. He wasn't great, but he did what he had to and protected the football. But that rushing attack, specifically Justice Ellison, was huge in the win today.
Yeah, he looked pretty serviceable in the second half, Taven Jackson. And I think if he can play like he did the second half or better next week at Michigan State, assuming he's starting, Indiana shouldn't have to worry too much. It's his first game starting since, I think, Michigan last year. So it's been a while, and to kind of get the jitters out is what he needed. Good team win, and especially the defense really helped out today.
Yeah, and Justice Ellison, I talked about it again, 29 attempts on the day. I think not even close. I think his career high going into today was 21. So 29 rushing attempts. It wasn't the most efficient day, but it was one of those things where he had to make big plays. There was a couple third downs, a 3rd and 6 late in the game, able to get the 11 yards. But, the real story today was the defense, and specifically D'Angelo Pons.
Yeah, D'Angelo Pons, 2 interceptions. He had that 1 pick 6 in the first half, 67-yard return. Truly incredible. Not something you see too much. He's not a big guy either, only about 5'9", but to see that from him was really incredible, and to have the defense sort of pick it up, because that first half, the whole show for Indiana was the defense. They started the game getting that 3 and out on the first drive, and the defense shined throughout the game.
Yeah, D'Angelo Pons had the matchup today. Denzel Boston came into this game 40 catches, 540 yards, 9 touchdowns. Clearly Washington's best weapon on the outside. He's 6'4" versus D'Angelo Pons, who is 5'9". That's a 7-inch difference. And Pons, he had the interception on the jump ball later in the first half, which led to a touchdown, the pick 6. And he locked Boston up. Boston had by far his worst day of the year, 4 catches, 43 yards, no touchdowns on 9 targets. Pons, he came in with a lot of hype after last season with JMU, freshman All-American. And it was, how is he going to translate against these Big Ten receivers? A guy like Denzel Boston was someone people he could have an issue with just because of the size. And Pons was all over him today. Yeah,
and Pons was telling us after the game the biggest thing that he focuses on is his confidence and just staying locked in and keeping his head down. And he says, even though he's only 5'9", he's a smaller guy on the field. He really does have a lot of humbleness in him, and that kind of fuels him through this play. Signetti was really praising him today, saying, he's from Miami and he's been used to playing in these tough atmospheres with tough athletes, and that's really, built his competitiveness to compete and play shining at this level.
Yeah, and you mentioned tough atmosphere. Yes, you're at home, yes, full crowd, but without your quarterback, a lot of pressure on the defense to show up. This was there's been some moments where this team's faced adversity, but none bigger than this week. And seeing them respond like this, 31-17 victory, never trailed again, which was, they looked like they were about to trail for the first time this season before Pons had that pick 6. So that defense just really, special play from them, and specifically the linebacking core, Jalen Walker, Aiden Fisher. I want to ask you, because you were in the presser, I don't know, because Fisher left the game in the fourth quarter and missed one play, but the defense never went back out there. Did Signetti talk about Fisher's injury or anything about that?
Nothing was mentioned about Fisher. No one asked anything either. I would assume should be okay. I guess they'll release it the next few days, but definitely a subject to keep an eye on.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. It didn't look like, too bad he walked off on his own power. It's, obviously concerned because it's Aiden Fisher and this linebacking core. It's very good, but also very thin. It's really him and Jalen Walker. So if Fisher does miss time, that is a huge story. But at the same time, the defense never went back out on the field. So you just nothing to know. And I doubt Signetti is really going to say anything unless there is anything to say about it. But one other name I do want to bring up on defense, Sean Asbury. Just had a huge week last week. My favorite thing was he had the text messages saying he was going to get a pick off Raiola. Did it. Then today, just all over the field, had a huge sack early in the game. 8 tackles, just really all-around performance from him.
And like even last week, that interception he had on Raiola and Nebraska were getting really close to the end zone. So that interception he had came at a great time today. I mean, he had 8 tackles. He had a sack. He really held it down on defense for Indiana. And that's just one of those crucial players who goes in every week and makes an impact. Another player, a new face of the program. Everyone should start being able to recognize a guy like him who's going to be an impact every week. But, I mean, man, this Indiana defense and O-line just killed it today.
Oh, yeah, the O-line, I mean, they had a tough task. I know Washington's, run defense has kind of struggled at times this year, but they went into that game knowing, Indiana's going to rely on the run game. Washington is going to attack try to stop the run, and Indiana still at 188 rushing yards. It's, I'm a Patriots fan. I'm from New England, so it's fun to see them do that against Steve Belichick. Steve Belichick, that was a good game plan. The Indiana offense really did struggle today. I know, you look at the score, 31 points, but 7 off the pick 6. You had Miles Price's massive kick return set up a touchdown. There was a lot of drives where Indiana just kind of went stagnant, and the passing game just wasn't a threat. But Curt Cignetti, this team is so well coached. They don't make the big mistakes. So you don't see the big dumb penalties that cost this team. And that's, I think, one of the biggest differences between this team and Indiana teams of, the past.
Right. And I mean, even with the O-line, I feel like it's not getting recognized enough, but they really kept this team in the game. That Taven Jackson rushing touchdown at the end when he rushed that 2 yards to the right side, it was just an insurance score, but you really saw the O-line helping him out on that with the blocking, and he was a one-on-one running through to try and get to the end zone. And I think the O-line was just so crucial in this game. And assuming the O-line, the defensive line can continue playing like this, he shouldn't have to worry if he's playing next week.
Definitely. And just looking at the season as a whole now, 8-0, matching 2019 total, the most since 2019 when the Hoosiers went 8-5. Dylan, going into the season, I mean, you're a junior. I saw 4 years of Tom Allen football. You're very lucky again. I'm very jealous of you getting to be there on the ground for these games. If someone told you going into this year, Indiana was going to walk out of Washington with without Curtis Rourke playing in that game, 2 being 8-0, what would you say?
I had none of this on my bucket list. None of it was on my bingo card going into this year. I didn't expect the game day. I didn't expect this undefeated route to happen. I didn't expect Curtis Rourke to be on Heisman watch. So everything's been kind of icing on the cake, and there's still a long way to go, including postseason football. But, going back to what you said, I think I've seen 3 conference wins of my 2 seasons as a spectator. And it was a grind. I went to every game the last 2 years, and it was a grind going and watching that era of Tom Allen football, the end of it. It's hard. So to be able to come now and see this team on the up is really enjoyable, and to see what's going on with the game day and all the fans coming out and this team being, as popular as Indiana basketball right now is incredible. I don't think anyone could have imagined this. And, as you said, in your time at IU, you didn't see much either, but for you to see this too, you got to be, smiling when you're watching the games. Yeah.
It's really fun to see because, this is usually the time of year where, switch off from football, move over to basketball. Indiana basketball's a big exhibition tomorrow against Tennessee. It's the focus switches, but now it's no. There's 3 really good teams, including women's basketball too, that all deserve the attention. And it's a very good time to be an Indiana sports fan. And also just going from last year, Walt Bell's offense to Mike Shanahan and Dino Terry, it's night and day. I do not miss having to watch Walt Bell's check down screen offense. Walt Bell and the pressers was his character on his own, but it's night and day watching this team.
For me, I'm sure this was the same for you, but the last 2 years watching the games, they were just another game. But now this year round, I count the days down to game day on Saturday. I'm planning ahead, what my weeks are going to look like going forward because I'm so excited for the games. Everyone's asking me about the bowl game and the college football playoff eligibility, and it's all I'm thinking about. So it's a lot of hype building up and a lot of anticipation all around Bloomington.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that used to be our Saturday. Like, as a student at Indiana, it was Saturdays. It's like, well, we are we're sports media guys, we're journalists, we're going to the games, we're covering the games. But it was like for most students, it was, oh, we're gonna go tailgate and then nap during the game but that's not the case anymore. It's sold out, sellouts, and it's just a different atmosphere. And like you mentioned, it's this isn't the end. This is just the start. Mikhail Kamara. I mean, I keep going back to this quote against Nebraska when asked about being, or not Nebraska, Northwestern, when asked about being 6-0, he responded like, "Yeah, it's nice and all, but this isn't the goal. This is just the start. Like our goal is to go win a Big Ten championship, win a national title." And that is what this team, has on their mind. They have these aspirations of they can beat anyone, they can do anything they want, and it's a different mentality than we've seen of the program in the past.
And I don't think a lot of that is out of possibility. Winning a Big Ten title, make you run to the playoffs. Indiana blew Nebraska out, 56-7, and Nebraska almost beat Ohio State today, which has been off the radar of Indiana fans with this game, the Indiana game going on today. But Nebraska almost beat Ohio State, so that's really building a lot of excitement for when Indiana plays Ohio State. It's not a common thing to see Indiana football beat a team like that.
Yeah, and it's one game at a time. Signetti's kind of emphasized that point. Next weekend, talk a little bit about Michigan State. Michigan State led by Aiden Childs, new coach, but kind of seems like they're putting it together a little bit right now. We'll get a good look at them when they take on Michigan later tonight. But Curtis Rourke's, status for that game, that's really important. Pete Thamel of ESPN reported during game day, like I think probably about 20 minutes before kickoff, that Rourke was throwing yesterday. So that is a very good sign. I know the timeline has been next Saturday. So I don't want to make a prediction if he's going to play or not, but it is going to be something to watch all week. Rourke's status going in.
I mean, you got to be hoping and praying that Rourke does be able to play on that Saturday versus Michigan State. On the road, I feel like Indiana hasn't had much of a road challenge yet. There's been some Big Ten games, but nothing of a true challenge. And if you're playing without Rourke on the road, that would be one of your biggest challenges of the year. So you got to really be hoping he's going to be available to play.
Yeah, I mean they survived this week without Rourke, but I mean we can all tell it's a very different team when Curtis Rourke is on the field. Just his command of the offense. What Taven does bring though, which it was fun to see, is his mobility. There's some QB draws and he had the rushing touchdown on a designed run. That brings like a new wrinkle to the offense, but at the same time, Rourke's connection with guys like Elijah Surratt, Miles Cross today, who was really just I think Cross had one catch in the game, just wasn't really a part of the game plan. Is the receivers really just in a non-passing game script didn't really get much of an opportunity. So it's a completely different look with Rourke, and I kind of expect all week Signetti's going to keep his cards close to the chest, as he just doesn't want Michigan State and their coach Jonathan Smith to kind of have any idea who's going to start, so they got to prepare for both guys.
Yeah, I mean, you see every week Rourke goes out there and he has a connection with all of his receivers, and he gets all of his guys 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 touches a game. And obviously, Taven Jackson didn't have that sort of feel yet with his receivers. Just a bunch of guys got 1 or 2 touches. So you got to hope that Taven can kind of build off of this week and continue to kind of grow with his receiving room, kind of the way Rourke does.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I did like from Taven today, though, I mean, similar to Rourke, he spread the ball around. 11 completions, 9 different Hoosiers caught a pass today. It's something we've kind of seen all year from both Rourke and now Jackson. Just the team wants to spread it around. They're like, obviously, Elijah Surratt is the guy. He is, the number one, and for good reason. But, behind him, it can be anyone. Today, we saw Omar Cooper have the big play today in the passing game. I know Miles Price had 2 catches, which, led the team, funny enough, just those 2 catches, him and Zach Horton. But, really, there's so many weapons on the outside that it's not like Elijah Surratt is the offense. You have to just lock him up because, Surratt was held to a quiet game today, just 1 catch for 12 yards on 5 targets, like by far his worst game of the season. Yet the offense, still got enough points to really get past Washington today. Yeah.
And speaking on the receivers, did you see that one video of Coach Signetti on the sideline with Miles Price after his punt return?
It did. Yeah. Signetti really got into him, but, Price, made up for it. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but, 65-yard punt return, that was really, like you mentioned, like Taven Jackson's, it was like the icing on the cake game ceiling. Price set it up. Price's big return down to the 14-yard line, that didn't put the game away, but it gave the offense a chance to put the game away.
Someone brought it up post game, that video, that clip of him kind of giving him a talking, and Signetti says, yeah, after the negative yards he had and then the big return, he finished even on the day at 0 in punt return yards. So that was pretty funny, but he definitely made up for his mistake, and that's what you got to do after a return like that first one he had.
I mean, that's the thing with Signetti, though. You know he's going to hold his guys accountable. If you make a mistake, he's going to let you know. Wants chasing. I don't know who said it, but it was like you're not going to get there, but you're chasing perfection, and you're just hoping to be close. Because if you're close, you're going to be really good. And Indiana's, done that really well all season.
Yeah, and I mean 8-0 now. Obviously, that shows how perfect they've been. So you just gotta hope that can keep riding out as long as they can pull it.
Yeah, definitely. And for all things, Indiana football, basketball, recruiting, women's basketball, all of it, we're gonna have you covered on the HoosierIllustrated.com website. Dylan, I know you probably have a story coming out the next day or so. Alec will lastly we'll also have a story coming out about today's game with some quotes. We'll have stuff from tomorrow's scrimmage against Tennessee. Pretty much everything you could imagine or want from Indiana sports, we'll have you covered on HoosierIllustrated.com. Make sure you're following Indiana_FRN on Twitter, Facebook, and make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. Thank you guys for tuning in to the HoosierIllustrated.com post-game wrap-up show. We'll be back next week.